Good morning and welcome to the show. Yesterday, I put up an episode about how to handle situations where customers call us and where they're angry. It was a case study and a rant that went off an experience that I had recently when my wife tried to order chickens and yams, chicken parts, not live chickens. So when she tried to order meat and yams from an Instagram vendor, and of course we've had experience trying to deal with some of these online food vendors, and so it was just a general rant and riff on these sorts of things and how to handle customer service issues when things go wrong. So on the primer or on the promo that I put out to publicize the podcast episode over on social media, some of the questions that I wrote there were how we should handle situations where customers call us angry and whether it's a problem if we lose people on the back end. Because we spend a lot of time and money invested in our businesses. The time that we spend at networking sessions, going to meet people at trade fairs, talking to strangers, what else? Time spent in maintaining the website, cultivating an online presence, engagement on social media, all the time and the money that we invest in these processes. So that was one of the questions. That is it worth going through all that trouble only to have people walk out on the back end, especially when we consider what the lifetime value of a customer is. Now, the idea of a lifetime value of a customer, for those of you who've been listening to the show for a long time, is this idea that if someone does business with you, even though they pay amount X, the gross profit to you is going to be, 100 naira or 100,000 naira or whatever. But the idea is this, that if the person does business with you and the profit is 100 naira today, is that the value of the customer? Or is the value of the customer the 100 naira that you get from that particular person each time they make a repeat purchase? So in this sense, you now realize that customers are valuable over the long haul. So if someone walks up to you today, does a business deal with you, and the profit was 10 grand, some people think the value of the customer is 10 grand. But when I was a little boy, my father pointed out, back then we were trying to buy cement because my father he had some project he was working on in the around the Abuja areas, like most people who had come to Abuja newly at the time, because my family has been in Abuja since 1980, let's say 1984, 85. So like most people, there was lots of speculation in property markets, and so he used to buy a lot of cement. And that was one example that he used to give to illustrate to me the value of a customer, that it's not just the profit on the one bag of cement, but it's the fact that we've bought cement today, and if this person does a good job, we're going to come back tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe next month, maybe next year to buy a couple more bags of cement. And so that is also the case in whatever business that you are involved in. So it's not just the 100 naira or the 100 grand that you get from the customer today, but the 100 grand that you get from them if they come back next month, next year, and they keep doing so for the next 5-10 years. And it's also something that those of us in the wedding and the event space should strive towards as well. We should try to make sure that we get people coming back for repeat business referrals, and then they bring their friends and family members along. For those of you who think that weddings are one and done, the bride has gotten married, you've collected your profits, you can't do business again, then listen to a podcast episode that I made maybe a year or two ago. I think it's called, I think the title is Are Weddings One and Done? So that's what you'll be looking for in the header, in the title, and then you'll get a full idea of where I explore these sorts of things. Now, should we say that because it's a wedding and we've collected money from the bride right now, that there's no possibility of doing business in the future? So, so anyway, these are the sorts of ideas I think that we should be throwing around in our head when we're dealing with angry customers overall, not when we're dealing with this angry customer in particular. Anyway, so the reason why I'm making reference to this past episode, for those of you who are curious, the episode went up yesterday. So when you're done listening to this, all you have to do is to scroll backwards, just one episode, and then listen to that for a fuller treatment of how I suggested that we ought to deal with these scenarios. So now, the reason why I'm bringing that up today is because I received a comment on one of them, and the comment was that that considering... Okay, let me just read out the comment. Okay, so this is what the person responded. Well, considering life as we once knew it is rapidly changing, we now have bigger fish to fry than angry customers. Interesting time in history, the global marketplace is currently experiencing unprecedented shifts, and all conventional ways of doing things shall follow suit. So, let me repeat, or rather, let me rephrase. So, I think what this person was trying to say is that angry customers are not our biggest problem now, because we have bigger fish to fry than angry customers, because we live in interesting times in history and things are changing. The global marketplace is changing. We're experiencing unprecedented shifts, whether it's COVID or supply chain issues or the cost of doing business. And so, because of that, the conventional ways of doing business are going to change. And so, those are our biggest problems. And so, today, I want to ask those question today, that is this actually the case, that because the marketplace is changing, because we have unprecedented shifts in the economy, because things are much more expensive, blah, 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 stuff like that, is that the case that the way we have to do business has to change? Now, for those of you who've been listening to the show for a while, you already know what my answer to this question is, and that what we should be looking for is whether human beings are fundamentally still the same or not. Because changes come and go is just a necessary part of human society. And from the time of Jesus Christ up until now, and even before then, there will always be changes. Superpowers come and go, societies come and fall, economic climates change, what else? Societal fads come and go. There will always be change, and we will always think that what we're going through is unprecedented. So today in COVID, what we're going through is unprecedented. But in the great, what was it called? Was it the great, I can't remember. There was some flu pandemic, I think in the 1920s or something. I mean, they also thought that what they were going through was unprecedented and unique and one of a kind. And there have been several world economic crashes, financial crashes, all kinds of things. So the most important thing that we should be paying attention to is not whether these things come and go or whether they happen or not, but we should be looking at whether human beings are fundamentally the same or not. People still need goods, people still need services, and people are still going to find ways to have their needs and their services met. Now, there are some things that you can't do anything about. For instance, there was a time when because of economic trends or cultural trends or whatever, the wedding industry was not a thing. So if times change and the wedding industry is no longer a thing, you have no control over that. It doesn't necessarily mean that your business has to die as a photographer, or your business has to die as a wedding planner. So we can't do anything about those bigger shifts. But the thing is, so long as human beings remain fundamentally the same, then business principles will always remain valid, and you should be paying attention to those sorts of things. So let's stop falling prey to all these people who are running around shouting about how the world is coming to an end and things are changing. So long as human beings are fundamentally the same, business principles will remain valid, although the context in which we practice them will change. So even though there are lots of unprecedented shifts and all kinds of things going on in the market, we still have to worry about angry customers, because this is one principle that will remain valid for all times. When you have angry customers go out, and unfortunately, angry customers tell more people about the experience than happy customers do. The research available is sketchy and non-definitive, but it's clear, at least in America and in the United Kingdom, that when people have a happy experience with business, they go out and tell a bunch of people. But then when they're really angry, when they're really pissed off, they tell a whole bunch of folks. Take for instance what happened. I had a nasty experience with that person, and I used it as a case study. I spoke about it on the podcast, and thousands of you heard about it. Of course, I didn't talk about that person's business by name, but that's just how it happens. You have a good experience, maybe you might tell your wife and your best friends, that's it. But if you have a terrible experience, you tell your wife might mention to her friends, When you tell your husband, you might tell your in-laws, you hear that somebody wants to go to so and so restaurant, and you're like, no, don't go to that place. The last time I went there, you won't believe what happened. I found a fingernail in the egusi soup. Don't go there. It's terrible. So that is one thing that is not going to change. The people are upset. They're going to talk to a whole lot more people than when they are happy. And these are some of the dynamics, the principles and human dynamics, interpersonal dynamics that are not going to change, and it's something that we have to adopt and we have to hold fast. So whether COVID happens or not, whether Ukraine happens or not, whether global warming happens or not, what else? Whether inflation happens or not, an angry person is going to tell a shitload more of people than a happy person is. And so you have to be concerned about your angry customers. And then another business principle that is not going to change. Attracting customers is expensive. We spend a lot of time and money trying to get people to come in through the door. If you are bringing in 100 people through the door and you're losing 80, if you do the math, it just doesn't work out in your favor. That's a standard business principle, because the 10 people that you're left doing business with, this is what's going to happen. Of the 10 that you did business with, a couple of them are going to die. I mean, God forbid, but that's just what happens. Human beings die. A couple of people are going to move. So you're doing business in Abuja. Of those 10, so let's just say now we're concerned with our Abuja clients or our Lagos clients. A couple of those people are going to leave Abuja or leave Lagos, leave Ikeja, or leave wherever. They're going to move. A couple of them, the situation is going to change. So let's say with patience and trying to use these people to buy our groceries, eventually the kids are going to leave the house and we're not going to have to buy so much food anymore. So these are the things that happen. Now, when you look at when you look at this level of attrition that happens in the business, customers falling away, you realize that even that 10 that you captured out of the 100, they're not going to be with you forever. So you're always going to have to be investing time and money to get more and more and more and more people. It gets tiring, it gets more difficult, and it also gets more, what's that word? It takes away the mojo. It just makes business such a hard slog. So the thing is, if you're getting 100 people in through the door, it's just a simple math thing. If you keep 80 of them with you, you're making your life and your business a whole lot easier for next year, because out of 100 people, you kept 80. Definitely, that's a good chunk of folks that are going to come back for repeat business next year and the year after and the year after. So the more people that you retain today, the less sales activity, the less selling you have to go and do tomorrow. And that is just a simple mathematical and business principle. So let's stop running around listening to people who are talking about the sky is falling and this is changing and COVID and international this and blah, blah, blah and all that. And so because of that, this is the new normal, unprecedented change. We have to change the way we do business, blah, blah, blah and all whatnot. You don't have to change a thing. The principles remain the same. All you have to do is to take these principles and adapt them to changing circumstances. And the businesses who who found a way to do that during the COVID 2 years ago, during the height of the COVID thing when we're in lockdown, they are the ones that are the pioneers that have showed us how the principles remain the same. We just have to adapt. There are a couple of people who went into lockdown mode, like, oh, okay, this thing is here, nobody's buying, I'm not going to promote. Other business said, okay, people are not going out, they're staying at home. How can we reach them? People in the restaurant services, I mean, that's where this whole Uber Eats and people bringing food to your house and all whatnot. I mean, even in Nigeria, we experienced that where people started the deliveries, home deliveries went up and stuff like that. I mean, they didn't just sit down there and say, this is unprecedented change, we have to change the way that we do business. Rather, they thought, okay, things have changed. This is Pana in the works. What are we going to do? Are human beings still the same? Yes. Do human beings still need stuff? Yes. So how are we going to go about and fulfill that the desire and the demand that is out there? Anyway, I've gone over too long because I've been about 15 minutes, and essentially what I wanted to say in today's recording could have been said in 5 minutes. I guess what I just want to say is let's be careful the kinds of stuff that we consume. Let's not let people be a downer to ourselves and to our businesses. And please, let's remember that societies will always change. There will always be some new upheaval. Until the world ends, there's always going to be something new, something unprecedented, something that came out of the blue that we didn't anticipate. But so long as human beings are fundamentally the same, then the principles of doing business are going to be the same. We just need to figure out what are these principles, how do we adapt them to the new circumstances. So, if you're dealing with angry customers, then realize that it's a solid human and business principle. Your angry customers are a problem that cannot be ignored. So, the fact that you think Buhari has messed up the economy, of course, everybody always blames the government. So, the fact that you think Buhari or Biden has